PEP Radio is a part of the Pennsylvania Equality Project that plays music, news, and weather, actively advocating for the LGBTQ+ and disabled since 2024.
PEP Radio, available on Live 365, Roku, Alexa, and at paquality.com.
Here at Gay SA Radio, we're very happy to welcome the Othering podcast to our airwaves. Catch the show every Thursday at noon CAT, bringing fresh voices and compelling conversations straight to you.
Head over to gsaradio.stream to find out how you can tune in and become part of our family. Don't miss it, only on Gay SA Radio, where you are family.
One man and one woman join forces to rid the world
What are you doing?
of inequality and fascism.
Seriously?
I'm trying I'm trying to do a promo here.
For whom? What are you doing?
Welcome to the Othering Podcast with Mike and Dory.
Hello there. How are you all doing
Hello.
today?
I'm good, how are you?
Doing wonderful, thank you.
Okay, today we are talking to Jeza Belle. Jeza Belle is a drag queen, comedian, producer, and award-winning author. Her guest articles have appeared everywhere from the Huffington Post to the Advocate. Jeza's books include the beloved Trashy Cookbook, The Harlow's Guide to Classy Cocktails, and the highly controversial Jeza's Jesus Juice, a Drag Queen's Christian Devotional, which broke ground as the first mainstream Christian book written by a drag queen anywhere in the world, and it's really good.
Yes.
Additional, Jeza has ventured into the world of historical fiction with the Presence Collection, 4 standalone novels that feature LGBTQ+ main characters in settings where their existence have been minimized or ignored. Blood Rogue, The Freedom to Love, and Abomination, The Story of David and Johnathan, have each received high praise for their bold and fresh takes on significant historical periods. Jeza Belle has proven time and time again that she is a force to be reckoned with in all aspects of entertainment. Welcome, Jeza Belle. It's an honor to have you.
Well, thank you so much. And if that just didn't make me sound about 1,000 times better than I actually am, what a great way to start.
I think that is absolutely perfect because reading some of your stuff has been wow. Truthfully, wow.
Very well written.
It's incredibly well written. Just some people write and it's just simple and it gets to the point and it's just okay, that's great. But you made it almost like it was your soul kind of writing it. And just the wording and everything put together it was breathtaking to me.
Well, that really touches my heart. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
You got them all buttered up now.
Okay, now that I've got you buttered up.
Right. Now you can just lay it on me. What are you going to hit me with? But thank you very, very, very kind of you.
Thank you, because you writing that opened up so many things. And, everything that you've touched has been absolutely wonderful and beautiful. And having the ability to talk to you is awesome.
Well, I feel the same way about you all, and thank you for what you're doing in putting topics and people on the map that don't always get the same sort of space that others get because they suck all the oxygen out of the room. So thank you as well.
Thank you. I appreciate doing that because as other person, because of what I look like or whatever, I want to put people on the map that never get a chance to have those voices. And, sometimes I like being able to hype everybody up because everybody deserves that moment in the sun and being humanized and, devoted to and loved and cherished just like anybody else. And, the fact that you happen to be famous, which is I'm dying here.
That's famous. I wouldn't quite call it famous, but what I would say is that we are very much in alignment because I think it's a responsibility that each of us have. Yes. No matter, it really doesn't matter what everybody's famous to somebody in a sense, right? But we all have a responsibility to uplift each other and use whoever can hear our voice, let's use our voice to bring others up with us. So
Exactly.
Yes. So when did you start your journey with the writing and writing what you write and what it talks about and what it says?
So I've had a interesting journey. All my drag and my writing started together quite a while ago now. I think it's been this year, I think will be the 15th year. And while other people probably who are around my age, not that I'm giving my age away,
We never ask a lady her age.
That's exactly right. But a lot of people did drag a lot longer than I have at this stage. So 15 years ago, I wrote a little web series called Jeza and the Bells. And it was about 3 drag queen superheroes, sisters, who have to save the world. And essentially, I wrote it. It was born out of this idea that God takes things that mankind considers to be the most unworthy, and often uses those as a way to sort of shine a light, right? And further an agenda of love. And so I wrote this web series, and we were producing it and directing it, and could not found 2 wonderful people to play the 2 sisters, but couldn't find a drag queen that I wanted to play Jeza Belle. And so I wound up becoming Jeza Belle. And that's how my drag started. It was very unplanned. And right after that, the podcast got like a fair amount of attention, some press, and actually a publication in the UK reached out to me first and say, hey, would you write some stuff for us? And then after that, it just sort of like snowballed with the writing, and writing sort of took over, and it all was writing through this voice of Jeza, who really has given me a voice that I didn't even know that I had, or didn't realize I had until I started doing drag. So that was the birth of my writing.
Okay.
Take a chunk of time later, did a bunch of stuff. About 2.5 years ago, I was lying in bed at night. I could not sleep. And sometimes I have terrible sleep anxiety. It's like one of those strange things, and I could be fine during the day, but if I can't fall asleep and I know I have a lot to do the next day, it'll make me very stressed, right?
Yep.
So I could not sleep, and I was tossing and turning, and I had this like strange feeling, and I was hearing the song from The Color Purple, which is one of my favorite movies now, and iterations and Broadway show, but it was from the first movie, and it was Maybe God is Trying to Tell You Something, the song. And I said, oh my gosh, God, are you trying to tell me something? And within like a few minutes, I had the title to my drag queen Christian devotional, Jeza's Jesus Juice. I knew the name of the book. I knew exactly what chapters I'd be writing, what format it would be in. And I fell asleep after that. And it was the strangest thing, because I got up the next day and I started writing it. And my foray into books in my modern era as Jeza really started 2.5 years ago with that Restless Night. And since then, I have been writing pretty much up the yin-yang like a crazy person at all hours of the day and night, because I now have 3 novels published, a 4th one coming out in a couple months, another one that's being shopped around, and just sort of, that's how it all happened.
That's amazing.
It is. And I love that movie, The Color Purple. And it was I remember watching it as a little girl and thinking it was just really, really good. And I love that song. That was like kind of, that there's a good song when no matter what, even if you don't necessarily believe, you believe because you hear that song, and the way that they sing it and the way that the actress sang the song in the movie. Yeah. Holy shit, that was like awesome. I loved it. And it actually it made me almost cry. And that's, pretty high praise coming from me, because as a kid, I didn't cry at those things because I thought it was just like, oh, you're not supposed to cry at this. What is that? It's so silly. But it almost made me cry.
Yeah, I agree. Everything about The Color Purple, the book, the films, both films, the musical, which I've been so blessed to see, it all carries you away. It really carries the spirit, carries the soul. And it doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, what you come from. There's a common human experience in it that I think really touches deep. And so I was not that old necessarily myself when it first came out. And I don't think I've ever gotten through any iteration of The Color Purple without bawling my eyes out. And so I could see why, that song would take you somewhere. And it's funny how songs stay with you, or music stays
Yes.
with you, art stays with you at sometimes the strangest times.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I'd say probably late December, I started hearing in my dreams that Rick Astley song "Together Forever," and then all of a sudden the commercial started playing again.
Isn't that funny? Well, there's a creepiness to that too, right?
Yes.
So actually, there's a connection to that, because I was just telling somebody about this yesterday or the day before. I was saying, okay, I'm like totally tripped out now. I can say to somebody, I cannot be near any equipment technologically whatsoever, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I would love to go to Bora Bora one day. And then I open up my phone, and it'd be like, tickets to Bora Bora.
Yep. They're watching you.
Yeah, and I expect my cell phone to oh, look, here's Rick Astley. But my TV station to actually play the commercials with the song in it, that was like extra creepy.
The Rick Astley gods heard you.
Yes. And to anybody who's going to say, oh my God, she's so old, that is right, because I like Rick Astley, and that is okay.
I do too, and I mean, his music is never going to go away, right? It's never going to give us up.
No, it's not. It's really good. And even though it sounds very 80s, which is fine. It can sound very 80s.
I live for a good 80s music anyway, so
it still transcends with that story of love. And everybody deserves that feeling of love, whether it's from the 60s or the 30s or today. And that's what art does, is that it doesn't matter when it was made, it still touches you somehow.
100%. And so when I think about really with any of the art that I do, whether it's comedy, getting up, and try to make people laugh, whether it's writing, to touch a heart in a nonfiction kind of way, like get to the heart of a matter, or to tell a story that kind of unpacks layers but connects to people. It really is about reaching the heart. And love is the transcendent message, even when you're discussing something tough or something that's light.
Yeah, because that's what humanizes all of us, is that understanding that every single one of us, even those that are hateful, still want love. And sometimes I think it's just the jealousy gets in the way of finding out how you can love yourself before you can love others. And when you get so full of jealousy of, well, they've got curly hair, why can't I? Or whatever it is. They're fabulous. They do makeup better than me. And, there's always that little nagging voice in the back of your head. But when you find that happiness and that love of yourself, and it doesn't necessarily have to be 100% perfect love of yourself, just that little itsy bitsy bit to start with, opens you up for so much happiness and so many, honestly, I will tell you guys this over and over again. You have saved my life. Honestly, getting to be a part of your stories and being able to listen and get to meet all of you has made my life so much better.
That's beautiful. And most hate is really born in self-hate.
Yes.
And if we look at what's happening in the country, the world, but if we look at a lot of what's happening today in the country, and it's happened since the birth of the country, the groups of people that we marginalize, that we hate on, that we essentially victimize and harm, usually it's born out of a fear within oneself. I mean, just look at what happens in our politics. The people who are the most anti-LGBTQIA+, usually underneath it all are harboring some sort of attraction that they're petrified of, right? I mean, we see that play out over and over again. We're like, they're the ones like under the bathroom stall, or, right? And so it's like a lot of hate is really self-hate. It's something that you're afraid of.
And honestly, it doesn't make sense to me because, yes, I've had self-loathing because of, being of color and being mixed and not looking enough black or enough white or whatever it is. And it eats you. But I've never once thought I need to direct it at somebody else. it never occurred to me that I need to direct my self-loathing at anybody else other than just, I needed to fix that upon myself because I shouldn't hate myself. God made me how I am because he did. And, I can't change it. I can't, go back in time and say, Mom, make me white or anything like that.
Right. And love yourself because you are created beautifully. So amen to that. But also the ones who do direct it to others, it's usually a power fear.
Yep.
It's a fear of, it's a hate about self, but it's a fear of a loss of power. And so today I go back to what's happening in our country, and it's like you have the last great audible gasp of these white, straight, cisgender men who are petrified of no longer being able to completely control every aspect of everything that happens. And so for this last great gasp, they're going to try to choke the motherfucking shit out of us. But eventually this moment's going to pass.
Yes.
And all of this that's being done now, as terrible as it is, and it's awful, there's so much, the moment's going to end because nothing lasts forever.
Right.
Everything has an expiration date. And we will move on.
Yeah, we will. And it'll be better.
The sun will shine again. Yeah.
Because
brighter than ever.
Exactly. Because we've got so much knowledge now that we didn't have in those past times that we had genocides and these last gasps of trying to control the narrative. We can reach out and touch people, and we can, reach across the world now where we didn't have that option before. And I think that's what even makes it worse for them, because we can talk to each other and say, wait a minute, she's beautiful. What are you talking about? Why am I supposed to fear her?
Yeah, and you hear people over and over as they get older, they would like, oh, I hated this on myself. And then I realized that's kind of my superpower. Like my freckles are my superpower. My, whatever it is,
Yeah.
And yeah, we do have power and amplification. But I was reading today actually about, for one small microcosm is of what's happening with this administration, is that they're trying to get publishing companies to really pull back on LGBTQ stories and authors, and they're trying to limit our amplification. But what they're not realizing is the horse has left the stable, right? And there's no putting the genie back in the bottle.
No.
We're never going back to a time where we don't exist, where we have to be marginalized in the same way. There's still an enormous battle to face still, many battles to face along the way. But it's kind of one of the reasons why. So, you have, in terms of my writing, I began with a comedic cookbook, but most of my writing has been trying to address, things that really get to shine a light on things that maybe aren't always privy to having a light shined on. So, yeah, you have my religious book, but I also wrote this collection of historical fiction novels, and there are various subgenres, the Presence Collection, about LGBTQIA plus main characters, really over time. Now, I'm only doing a certain amount. I could write about literally, there's so many, billions of stories and representations out there, but to shine a light on where we have been overlooked or completely minimized or just erased, right? And so it's to that point, right? The more we tell our stories, the more we talk about ourselves, the more we share our journeys, and whatever iteration, whatever art form we use, or whatever microphone we grab hold of, the better it's going to be, not just for the ones who are here now, but for the ones who come next.
Exactly. Because once you've let the genie out, the genie isn't going to go back in. And the more people see themselves in the stories or be, oh my God, I feel that too, the more they're going to, hopefully, have less self-hate. And the less self-hate, the less jealousy that they can have, the more they can then be able to look at other people and see the beauty that is there, even if they don't sound like them or look like them or, act like them. It doesn't matter because they can see the beauty, because they've been able to kind of heal that little part of themselves where you don't grow up anymore, where you never see somebody who looks like you or sounds like you anymore. And I think that's the part that needs to come out more, is that, yeah, sometimes it's not going to be perfect, but what is? But the fact that you can see even a little bit of yourself and be like, oh my God, I've done that. This is me. Talking about autism and LGBTQIA and everything like that has always been around. It's just people didn't have names for it all the time. I mean, there are stories of kings and queens who had lovers that were of same sex. There were, talking about eunuchs and having been that way, born that way, or made themselves that way, or unfortunately been forced into that type of thing. In fact, I'm reading a book about eunuchs being servants to a specific Shah. And it's fascinating. It's great to kind of understand and know that we have always been around.
100% since the dawn of time, and we will be here until this planet obliterates.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I often joke, my mother would say, she's still alive, but my mother had brain surgery a few years ago. She's not always as with it as before, but she would say, wow, if I was God, I would zap this planet into a burst of flames, like on a hot minute. And
Yes.
now I sort of take that on because I say to myself, wow, thank goodness I don't have that position, because I do not have that kind of infinite patience.
Yeah.
No.
For what we do to each other. I would have like curled this, zip this over and been like, next planet.
Yeah. I mean, I always joked growing up saying, God and Jesus have like this huge red mark on their forehead from smacking themselves in the head every time.
I love that.
I believe when we die, you can only go up from here. Can't be any worse. I think we're in hell, and when we die, then we go up.
And on a lot of levels, I think you're correct, right? And I think, not to get too biblical, right, which I can't help myself sometimes, but I think that is the message in some ways. Part of the message, the biblical message. I think part of the message is finding the love here and now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I also think part of the message is life will be hard. Jesus says, it's going to be difficult, but take heart. The world will be difficult, but take heart. I've overcome the world. Mm-hmm. And it's really that next iteration that is the reward in many ways, even though we have rewards day to day. So I don't disagree with you. I think there's a lot in there that is true.
Yeah, I do agree with that. That I don't necessarily, I've been paying attention to a lot of biblical scholars, and a lot of them say that basically a consensus is that this is hell. There isn't some sub-level and below the earth type of thing, and 9 levels. That was Dante's input later, much later, but that hell is earth, and that you go through these trials and tribulations, and at the end, then you get to go to a heaven of sorts. You get that eternal rest. You don't have to fight anymore. You don't have to scrape and argue,
or to be really doom and gloom. Maybe you just go in the ground and you don't have to deal with this anymore. So
either way, it's a heaven.
So it doesn't get any worse.
Yeah. In many ways, this is where I say above my pay grade. Like you reach a point where you realize, wow, I don't really know everything.
Yeah.
And that's okay. There is freedom in that, in saying, thank goodness there's a higher power to me who knows a lot better, knows a lot more. I don't know what's coming. And eternity can, if you really dwell on it, can be quite terrifying.
Yeah.
Whatever iteration it comes in, whatever form. But, when overwhelmed with those kind of thoughts, I say, thank goodness. Once again, I'm going to give that over because I can barely handle what I'm having for breakfast.
Right.
Like what I'm putting on my bagel.
Yeah, I don't know how vampires do it. I mean, those vampires lasting so long.
So I want to.
Oh, please.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go. I was
going to backtrack. So.
Backtrack.
Okay. Dory had said earlier that when you find your happiness and you can be free, do you feel like when you became Jeza Belle, and I know you kind of fell into it almost by accident, was that kind of your moment, or was that just kind of an accident and you already kind of found that moment before that?
I'm going to give you one of those like horribly twofold answers and say both.
Okay.
Right? Because I'll go with the first part being that, yes, in that I found a voice and started doing things that I didn't think I could do before or never believed that I could do. And so that's providence in a sense. Like I really feel that that's the hand of God. I believe that all my drag stuff, even in my trashiest, worst, foul mouth, whatever I'm doing, is really born out of my relationship with God. But the second part to that is I always had an eternal freedom because I've always had this deep spiritual relationship. And so I was already in a wondrous state in the eternal sort of sense, but in this world, I feel like I found something else and found something new. And it did bring me, it's brought me wonderful, wonderful moments, which is why when in my, in writing, and even I had written some screenplays that once won a bunch of stuff. And in the writing, people have said to me, oh, we'd be happy to publish this or maybe work with you on putting this film together if you don't use your drag name. And that's happened to me on more than one occasion. And I've said no on each of those occasions because for multiple reasons. Number one, why should I have to change the name to make you or anybody else feel comfortable? Number two, I found a voice doing Jeza Belle that I didn't know I had. So that answers your question. But the third one being that I say, to my trans family, they get the unfortunate, I don't know what the unfortunate act or it's a curse, I guess, of being lumped together with me because I'm not transgender, but people will believe that I'm transgender because I'm a drag queen, right? And so I'm trying to also carve out space to say it does not matter your gender, it does not matter what name you use, it doesn't matter if you have 7,000-foot hair, right, and 400 pounds of makeup. Take it from the heart, right? Because that's what really matters. And so if you're going to work with me, work with anybody. Because that's what we should be doing, not trying to find exit ramps to find ways to push people off the side of the road, but really trying to find space to bring everybody in. So I've turned stuff down, and that's just, So I found my voice in Jeza, I would say.
And your drag outfit, Jeza Belle, is by far the best I've ever seen. The most beautiful and just awesome outfit.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I figure if you were going to do it, just do it to the end. Also, I'm bigger. I'm no way around it. I'm a big gal, and when you're big, you go bigger, right? So if you're going to do hair, you don't go for a little bob. You go for like a big old quaff, right? And so to me, the bigger the hair, the better it is.
And it's red, so it's like, oh. I'm sorry. I am obsessed with red hair. Yes.
Dangerously.
Dangerously. I will rip it off your head. No, I'm kidding.
Me too. I feel like there's a boldness in red that even other colors that are more shocking are not as bold to me in many ways. As there's just something about a fire engine red that just sort of says, I am here, hear me roar.
Yes. And that, to me, I have always grown up thinking, you know what? I need to be a redhead because honestly, my personality has always been, I will happily confront, and there's an incident when we were in Florida and this lady kind of pushed my niece and nephew out of her way. And this little person is like hopping mad. Literally, I was hopping up and down and I was fussing at her. And I said, you better say, excuse me, and all of this stuff. And that's always been who I was. And I feel like dyeing my hair red, I'm a brunette, but dyeing my hair red fits me better. And I think that red is not only just this bold and beautiful and rare color, but it just kind of enhances that personality that you have and, allows you to be truthfully who you are better than being able to hide with the blonde or the brunette. And I think that's what makes it so beautiful.
Well, you said it better than I ever could. And I think you ought to embrace your inner redhead and, live your redhead life. I'm all about it.
So did Jeza Belle's persona, did you have it written that way? And that's where you got the idea? Or did you come up with that afterwards when you found out you had to be her?
No, I just decided that if I was going to do it, that I just had always liked myself a redhead as well. And so sort of like a joke I've been in my own relationship with my husband, we're together. this will be our 17th year. And we have like a comedic joke going on all these years because I insist that I was a natural redhead from birth. I was not, but don't tell him that. And so, so when the time came to do drag, of course, I had to grow on the red hair. I had done drag like once before for like a holiday party, like a New Year's. It was just a total mess. And then when I was very young, I did it once for a high school party. And I was hot as hell. Now I'm what they call a hot mess. But back then I was hot. I was net stockings. I was rocking those Madonna bangles all up my arm.
Oh, yes, I did that as a little girl. Oh, I had those Madonna bangles, and I wanted to have my hair kind of like hers in Desperately Seeking Susan. And
yes, I love that movie.
I do too. And I just remember my mom's like, no. We're not doing that to your hair. No.
The good old days, right? But yes.
That and Purple Rain. I loved those movies.
Yeah, me too. That was just a wonder. I went back to the 80s, a wonderful era. And I would say my red hair is tied to some of my favorite divas. And so that was the Cyndi Lauper, She's So Unusual era.
Yes.
I'm a huge Reba fan. I have been my whole life.
How can you not? She's got that beautiful red hair.
Yeah, so those are two of my major life influences anyway. They're not the only ones. I mean, there are many others who are not redheads, but those just, of course, helped carry the day when I had to come up with a look.
Yeah, and I like others. Don't get me wrong. I like blondes. I like brunettes, but it's just that red hair that just always grabs me, and it's just like that. They always are fiery, and it's like, yes, I really fit with you. I should have been born a redhead.
It's in your face. And so as Jeza, I say things that maybe, I don't know, well, I'd like to think maybe I wouldn't say them as boy me, but the truth is boy me has a big yap or two. But girl Jeza me says a lot more and probably is a lot trashier.
You said that you were a drag queen for a high school thing. I went to Catholic school, so that would have been really bad if I ever tried that, and I would have been bullied ridiculously for something like that. How did that go over for you? Did people respect you, or was that not so great?
I went to public school, and people were already saying whatever they wanted to say anyway. And I feel like if I remember, I walked down into the basement of a friend of mine who recently just passed. Actually, I just found out. I remember walking down into his basement. I could hear people gasp. But I was hot, so I owned it. But speaking of Catholic, so I went to a private Christian university, and that was quite challenging. So I do completely understand that. And, that takes a different level, takes a different type of development and strength to reach a place where you can sort of own and love yourself. And so I commend anybody who grows up in a religious household and is not treated necessarily well, or goes to a religious institution and is not treated well, because I've experienced that firsthand. I know people firsthand who were put into what's the therapy where they try to change you?
Oh, conversion.
Yeah, convert. It was an active thing at the college that I went to, and it took me a long time to not just reconcile for myself, but then really be able to convey to others that humans are human. They're not God. And to not find your peace or your self-worth in any way in what a person says to you, but really find it in the one that created you. And so just pulling on that thread that she put out there, because it, that starts at that age and it starts much younger. And so I definitely sympathize and empathize with anybody who's gone through that at any stage of life.
And I feel like that my upbringing affected my view on God and my view on the afterlife and everything, because I was so forced into it. I was forced to go to church every week. I was forced to learn about it every day at school and then go to church again every week in school, so twice a week. And I feel like that really just kind of tainted my view of all of religion as I got older, because I was just so tired of it and sick of it, and I don't know if you're familiar with kids in church, but almost every single time we would go as a school, someone would either pass out or vomit in church. So it made it even less appealing to be there because it was always just something going on at the same time. So yeah, I agree. It's a
Yeah. I'm
different environment.
deeply familiar with everything that you're saying, and it is. When I wrote Jeza's Juice, a drag queen's Christian devotional, it was for. First and foremost, I really wanted to speak to anybody who has either gone through religion, Christianity specifically, and come out the other side not so much into it anymore, or people who were interested in taking a look but were afraid and didn't know where to go. And so I have one of the blessings that I have had from writing this book. One of the biggest blessings is how many people have either written me or come up to me and said, this is the first time in some people years, decades, that they've actually thought about, maybe there is a place for me when it comes to Christianity, or maybe I really was hanging my hat on all of what other people said and not really necessarily a relationship with God. And that warms my heart so deeply, because that was the purpose of that book, to provide cover for people who it's been weaponized against, because Christianity is not really a weapon. It's an enveloping love. There's a story, there's an arc to the story, but at the center of the arc is a love for all. But instead, it's been used as a very sharp, sometimes dull blade. And when I thought of all of the millions, and I don't know, billions, I don't know how many have existed in the world, of people who've been turned off or turned away at the door. And I just thought, how dare they?
Yeah.
Right.
They're not God. How dare they?
Exactly. That's why, I've had so much problems growing up in, kind of reconciling that feeling of, I believe in God, but I can't believe in organized religion necessarily, because so many of, his creation has taken it and weaponized it against the marginalized, used it as a means to, well, see, this is in the Bible, so I got to do it this way. Instead of kind of seeing it as a lot of stories that took place in an era that no longer exists. And
context is so important.
Right.
Context is everything.
Context is 100%, the whole thing. And you're basing, for one thing, they pick and choose pieces instead of, you either take the whole or you don't take any of it, because you can't quite pick and choose what you want to follow versus what you're supposed to follow or whatever. And if you're not going to follow the whole thing just because, it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve shit, then I think if you're going to pick that, then you shouldn't be eating lobster. You shouldn't be eating shrimp. You shouldn't be eating ham. You shouldn't be wearing cotton blends. Don't pick and choose. Don't weaponize what was supposed to be a love letter, so to speak, and turn, I would dare say that there's probably been close to billions of people that have been stopped at the door and said, well, we don't like your kind.
Yep.
And now they are left aimless sometimes, maybe not quite, everybody.
But lonely.
Lonely, yeah. And sometimes believing that there's somebody else out there that can kind of maybe not controls everything that's going on in your life, but just giving it to somebody else saying, you know what, it's out of my hands. Right. And, that's their domain, not mine, kind of is a soothing thought instead of having it all 100% on you.
Yeah. So, well, as somebody who has slept with both Adam and Steve, I can tell you, so not Adam and Eve, but I have slept with Adam and Steve. And I will tell you that that's why I wanted to do this, is sort of reclaim space.
Yeah.
And stand up for those who didn't know themselves, that God is really there for you. There already is a seat at the table for each and every one of us, regardless of our identity, who we like, you name it. None of these things are actual factors that will push you out of the kingdom. Right. But what I do is I really center on the type of what we call Christianity today is not Christ Christianity.
No.
It's American politicized Christianity. And so the messages are a political message. But if you really read the Bible, there is a push against politicized religion, and Jesus especially, because our religious leaders today in this country are the Pharisees. They are the whitewashed tombs. And so they are standing at their pulpit or shouting on their news stations, all of these things that are really inconsequential, that do not matter. And by doing that, cannot help those who have come before us, but there's a responsibility to those around us and those coming next. And that's really why I wanted to do it. And so, as you may or may not be aware, with the book came a lot of pushback. I have had tons of death threats over the past, I think the book's been out officially 2 years ago. Right around this time, 2 years ago, that started. It got picked up on a couple of conservative news media, blogs, and whatever. I don't even know, like news channels. And so then the wave came. But with every pushback and every death threat, not only did it double down for me why I needed to write the book, it made it more clear. But with every one of those, there was another one or two or three who reached out and said, oh, wow, I really needed this. And I'm like, there is really nothing. I mean, I stand on this. I really do. This all is temporary as far as I'm concerned. It's kind of why I love the drag too, because it really represents that all that stuff you take off at the end of the day. Life is like that too. Eventually life ends. And for me, something stands and lives forever. I know we talked about this idea of heaven and hell, but there is what that looks like is up to God. But what will stand is the love. And so if there's an opportunity to help somebody reconnect to what I consider the most special and certainly my best friend, and I would love for everybody to have that opportunity to have a best friend, such as this, but any opportunity to find self-worth and find value in who you were created to be, that's worth 1,000 death threats, 1,000,000 death threats. That does nothing to me. Life is temporary.
Right.
Love lasts forever.
Exactly. And, to the death threats, I don't understand that shit. I mean, seriously. It doesn't say in the Bible that you have to believe this exact way. And in fact, Jesus flipped tables. He beat the shit out of people for co-opting God's words into weapons. And he never says anything about gay people. He never says anything. In fact, he exalts eunuchs and the meek shall inherit the earth.
That's right.
And that doesn't sound like be a pompous, bigoted asshole to me. I mean, though, maybe I read the definitions wrong growing up, and I'm like, looking at a different type of Webster's dictionary than they were, but it doesn't kind of mesh well with, being a pompous, bigoted asshole.
No, it doesn't match it. It just goes back to this idea that people don't want to lose power. So it's up to us to push back against those kinds of things. With my newest book, which had just come out a couple months ago, this is a novel where I took two biblical heroes, and who many have speculated over eons, really, that they were lovers. And that was David, the shepherd, who, of course, famously killed Goliath and eventually became king, and Johnathan, who was the prince of the first king. So Abomination, the story of David and Johnathan, and this novel tells their story, right? And so, again, any chance we get to amplify, show that we've been around. And so, do you think there haven't been people lost their mind over this book? Of course, they've gone crazy over it. But, do I think that these two were lovers? I think that there are characters, if we were to call them that, people who existed in the Bible that we hear in our stories. There were probably more LGBTQIA plus people than we realize. It's just
sure.
How they talked about them, how they were represented, may not in text may not match our modern understanding.
Right.
But, there's speculation that Paul was a homosexual, where he said, asked for God to remove his thorn, but this was the thorn. There's not that it should be a thorn, but to say that there, we don't really know because we have come in with modern interpretations of words from translations that were not always in the original text itself, right, in the original language, but those that were have been interpreted 15 times, 15 different ways.
Right.
And so today we rant and rail about things that they wouldn't even have any concept of what we were talking about today. And most of the biblical passages on homosexuality themselves have almost nothing to do with what we think of homosexuality today.
It has absolutely nothing.
Temple worship. They had to do with what the Romans were doing in terms of an older and a younger person. I think they called it pedagogist, whatever it is.
I can't remember exactly the words.
Things that were anathema and still would be today, but not when we're talking about adult loving consensual relationships, or probably even adult sexual relationships. I don't even think that's even really dealt with at all in the Bible in the way that we have tried to warp or force
Paul
to mean today.
Paul said we shouldn't even have sex.
Exactly right.
So I mean,
he said don't even be single if you can, basically. And if you have to be, do X, Y, and Z. But what X, Y, and Z, we don't even know exactly what that translated to be. So there's a lot to be argued. And so the fact that we spend so much time trying to divide people and push people away rather than pull people into a fold of love, that speaks to just sort of the base nature that humanity sometimes can take, and that is that we're always looking to separate, to divide, to have an other, so to speak, so that we can have someone that we deem lesser than, and that somehow makes us feel better about ourselves, that we are in some ways superior. But the bottom line is, we are all hot messes. We're equal on that level, and we are all exactly the same from birth. We're all in the spirit. We're all exactly the same at depth. And you know what? I don't care if you sit on a gold toilet bowl, right? Or you have to, lean over a hole in the floor, or you're out in the woods. We got the same beginning and the same end.
Yeah, we all shit and piss. So whether it's in a gold bowl or the hole, it doesn't matter. We all still have to pee and we all have to shit. So it doesn't make any sense to divide us the way we are. Because honestly, when you think about history too, none of those things could have happened if everybody was individualistic. You couldn't have those. We wouldn't have had the first cities in what is now, modern day India. We wouldn't have had the idea to build houses and to build shelters and to share foods and to go hunt and gather together. To hunt and gather if we didn't have communities, which indicates that we have to be together. Nobody survived on their own. They survived when they were together. And if you're so busy trying to individualize everybody, and it's not to say that being individual isn't right, because we're all unique, but we still have to live together. We can't all be butchers. We can't all be so, makers and dressmakers and things like that. All of us have a different, what is the word?
Different role. How boring would the world be if we were all the same flavor?
Right. And, some people couldn't boil water if their life depended on it. And that's okay. Because there's somebody else who can. And that's how you end up, creating these countries. That's how we have these countries, is because people got together and said, I can do this, you can do that, let's work together and make this better for all of us to then survive. And, in history, they depict that the starts of civilization was when they took care of those that we would today call disabled. And that was when they started creating those tools, and you start seeing the ceramics and all of those things. It's because they stopped trying to be individuals surviving alone in the world and got together into groups and said, let's work together.
I love that. And you know what's always really interesting, I've always, found so curious, is that whether a civilization popped up 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, thousands of years before that, one thing that has always been sort of universal as well is that all humans have looked upward. looked inward and looked upward, which also tells me, that there is a yearning, and the Bible does speak about it. There is something in the heart, in the soul, that's searching for that. It acknowledges and knows that there's a higher power, and it doesn't matter where somebody was on the planet, where their civilization was, what they looked like, what they did. It might look different how they represented, but actually on a lot of levels, there was a lot of unifying things, So it's always very fascinating. There's just a lot more that ties us, that binds us, than we pretend. And we try to separate as much as possible. But to your point, I do like flavor, because if we were all the exact same, if every single person had red hair wouldn't be that fiery, right?
Right.
If everybody ate vanilla ice cream, we'd all be bored to tears,
Right.
And so
That's why I honestly think that's partially why we had wars. Because, you wanted those teas that came out of India. You wanted the spices that came from the Caribbean and various other places in Asia. You wanted that flavor.
we want something different. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're never going to find it,
So
as
celebrate that.
Right.
Celebrate that. We love difference.
Like for instance, my grandfather had to leave the place he was in Alabama because he didn't want to marry a cousin. And I kind of liken it to that. You don't want to marry your family. So you have to leave to go and find variety.
That's right.
And you don't want the
And
same.
that was only to the betterment of mankind, because
Right.
the DNA and the genes were strengthened when you married elsewhere, not that everybody married, when you procreated elsewhere,
Right.
or coupled elsewhere.
Yeah, look what happened to the Habsburg dynasty when they kept it in the family, literally. And they had that nose and that chin and it also kind of ate away at their intelligence.
That's right.
Because
Yep.
of so much inbreeding. So you got to have those spices, and you got to be different, and it's okay to be different.
Celebrate it.
Damn straight.
Exactly.
Don't let anybody, conservative or not conservative, because liberals have done it too, where they kind of push you into those holes.
Sure.
Be who you are, love who you love, and if it's only yourself, at least don't be narcissistic about it.
100%. 100%. Actually, it's funny, because when the Christian Devotional came out, it took me a little bit off guard, in that while the conservative news media ran with it, the LGBTQ media wasn't that interested in touching it, because there's a lot of feelings about religion, and there's a lot of feeling that to be religious is to sort of be old-fashioned, and it wasn't seen as sexy enough. Yet when I go to book fairs, people will knock me out of the way to get to the book itself, and
Right.
it flies off the table so quick, and it's like, made me a little surprised that now other things of mine, when I did the cocktail cookbook, which is the Harlot's Guide to Classic Cocktails, that's been out for a hot minute, that got tons of press, because it was, of course, a good trashy, cookbook, right? With drag queens and, cocktails, and that was sexy enough. Religion wasn't sexy enough, even though here I was, the only drag queen, if you think about it, anywhere in the entire world who wrote a traditionally published book on Christianity. I mean, I thought that would have got I didn't write it for that. I mean, whatever, if they didn't want to write about it, it didn't ultimately matter. What mattered to me, though, was what it said in some of the pushback about how old-fashioned, who could believe in that anymore? And it hurt my heart for those people too, because it just goes to show, it showed me how people really have been hurt in a way that has sort of closed them off as well. And so to your point, we also, quite frankly, the LGBTQIA plus community, I like to use them all, we can be quite harsh on other people. We want to be so incredibly included, but we are not always so incredibly inclusive. And if somebody doesn't look a certain way or believe exactly what we believe, we will slice and dice them in a nanosecond. And so, I joke about this. I've written about this over the years, and I think I did write something about it and post about this once, about being, I've been thin, I've been fit, I've been fat, And one time I think I wrote an article about how I was never going to lose weight for a man again. And just sort of like getting to this thing of like, why, it really speaks to why I wouldn't change my drag queen name for anybody. Why do I have to change what I look like on the outside for you to feel like you're going to validate me? No, it doesn't work
Exactly.
like that. It just doesn't.
No.
I will choose to validate me, and then I'll let you know if I've allowed myself to validate you. How dare you? You know, and how dare I? So this whole thing that we often, we do it ourselves. So we talk a good game about how we don't like, how dare, people, they try to box us out and blah, blah, blah. But we cancel and slice people quicker than really almost any other group. And I just ask us to be mindful of that as well, because love is a two-way street, and if we are so close to remove people, where will we be in the moment that we need others to embrace us?
Right.
Lonely, quite lonely.
Very. And, to one of your points, what's sad, like, I don't follow a specific religion myself because, as I've said before, I'm not for organized religion very well because of the harms, because of the fact that they have excluded so many people. It wasn't until the 60s that black people were then deemed okay in the Mormon Bible. It's just like, what the fuck? And what's sad is that it was actually progressive. It's progressive ideas a lot of times in that Bible, in the Torah, in the Quran, and all of those things. It's progressive ideas. It's, about enlightenment. You're supposed to always seek a higher level of knowledge. Keep questioning things. Keep asking about those things. It wasn't about being humble as in dressed head to toe. It was being humble as don't be ostentatious. Don't be showing off your wealth. Be humble as in don't shove it down other people's throats that they're not as wealthy as you. It was those ideas. And that at that time was progressive, and it's still kind of progressive today in the fact that we're all supposed to be included. We're all supposed to be loved. And we're all, male, female, and everybody in between, is supposed to be searching continuously for more information. Not just, well, that's what the Bible said, so that's it.
That's why I always say for people, and I did put this in that particular book, but don't listen to me because I say something, right? You go out and study that for yourself. Also, to me, there's a factor that you can't get away from. And from my perspective, if you're going to go a route that you are developing a relationship with God, you have to have your own conversations with God. That's never going to be dependent on me or anybody else. Doesn't matter what somebody said anywhere else. You have to have that conversation.
Which is why I don't quite understand the confessional. It's like, what, you want to know what I've done because you can't do it?
No, they're living vicariously. You know what they're doing on the other side of that. They're getting off on the other side.
Exactly.
I should have said they're a wonderful. I know many wonderful priests, by the way.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So they know I'm just teasing them, but wouldn't be me if I wasn't slightly arrested. I mean, my religious book has a cocktail recipe in the back. So let's face it, I'm reverence is just never going to be fully my form.
We're running out of time before
which
you
sucks
get going.
Because this is like awesome. I love talking to you, and I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And you're just like, I am so excited that I have gotten the blessing to be able to talk to you. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I feel, again, just as we opened, I feel the same way. What a blessing this is for me to talk to you all. And actually, you've opened up and broadened my horizon just through this conversation. And I want to thank you for that. And let's go out together. And we don't know in these times, these words that we've shared here, we don't know whose lives these can touch or save. Right. And so, I just want to thank you for including me, and I'm wishing you tons of love and tons of success in 2026 and beyond.
Thank you.
And I want to say congratulations on being the finalist in the Saints and Sinners Fiction Literary Contest. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very, very excited about it. There are not many LGBTQIA plus writing contests. Very, very few. And this is one of the few that's prestigious and made me want to fall off my seat because
We need
That's
more of them
incredible.
too, because I mean that is so. You need a Pulitzer, however you pronounce it.
I don't know. Pulitzer. You know what? There are people more deserving than me. But if I could just plug one other thing,
Yes,
I
I was just going to ask you.
Quarterly, I've been doing something new. I started last year. It's called Bookalicious, and I try to bring together LGBTQIA plus authors across the spectrum to come together and just do a virtual reading event where people can join and just listen in. You don't have to have your camera on. You have an opportunity to win a book from one of these authors. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to buy anything. It just gives a space for authors who don't get a lot of opportunities to be heard and get showcased. And check out my website, check out my Instagram. Just join one of these. It costs nothing, but it actually gives a lot to these authors who don't get the same chances that other authors get, and they're pretty phenomenal. And I try to have a big mix of people each time. And if you're an LGBTQIA plus author who wants to be featured, kindly reach out to me on any of my platforms. Do know sometimes I'm a scatterbrain on 18 million different planets. And so if I don't get to you immediately, it's not because it was a no in any way. It could just be like I have a list of 40 people and I'm trying to mix genres over time, or that I'm a complete nutcase and you have to reach out to me again because I did the same.
And for the audience, what's your website?
It's www. Of course, I am Jeza Belle, IamJezabelle.com.
And you can find her on social media under the same name. I am Jeza Belle.
And definitely follow her, because she is the awesomest person out there, and just awesome writing. And, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Big kisses.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Othering Podcast by Mike and Dory. Please like and follow us on all of your favorite social media.
The Othering Podcast is produced by LoudCore Productions, graphics by Josh, and music by Jordy James.